Welcome back to the show. Toowoomba advocate Daryl Nicholson here with former USQ lecturer Simon Paton, pretty well known in Toowoomba. How are you, Simon?
Yeah, I'm well, Daryl. Good to see you, mate.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, this technology now is amazing, isn't it? That we can. It's now the real trend, and you're seeing a lot of content now on Zoom, which is great. But thanks for your time today, mate. Today,
It's good to talk with you.
yeah, we're going to talk COVID, and I know you're a facts and figures man. You like statistics, and it's one of your favourite things. So I've done a little bit of research today, mate, and so far there's 6,875 people who have contracted the disease, coronavirus. 97 deaths in the country. That's the latest figure I got. And of course, mate, the important thing, 5,809 people have recovered. So the media don't seem to talk about the recovery rate.
No, it's one of those things. I think doom and gloom always brings up the biggest figures. You know, it's like 30,000 people dying in Britain, you know, and the fact that these statistics are almost difficult for us to comprehend. What's interesting though, Daryl, is the fact that if you look at the group of people, if you split the group of people who have been impacted by COVID, it's a really interesting microcosm of the community. If you look at the Anglicare impacts, or even the Ruby Princess impacts, you can see that a lot of older people have been impacted very profoundly by it. They always said they would, of course. You know, people over 65 were really going to be the target group here. What's really interesting about this disease is how completely separate children are. I mean, it's amazing how they are just not engaged in this. It's amazing how a disease seems to have completely bounced over that whole demographic group. But I think what's also important is the fact that when you look at the groups impacted by the government shutdown, it is a fascinating insight into humanity in a way. The group most impacted by this, the hospitality group, the group you're in, mate, to be frank, is a group of people who have who are driven by their connections with other people. You know, that's what gets them up in the morning, is their enthusiasm to be around other people. It's the target group most affected. And when the government, you know, brought in JobKeeper and all these other dimensions, what they were doing was, of course, this particular group, the group which we call the kinesthetics, the kinesthetic group really needed to see and feel and hear and connect with people to understand what they could get to support them. And the irony is, of course, this is the one situation, disease, where that is very difficult to achieve. So if you're a read writer and you're living in a COVID world, you go straight to the web, you find what you need, you check the boxes, you tick the boxes and you send it off and you get protected. But people like kinesthetics, people who work in the entertainment industry, people who work in retail, you know, they're profoundly affected. These are people who need to touch, so to speak, other people to get the understanding of what they need. This is why, you know, the big lines of people who are outside Centrelink offices were largely that group of people. These are people who have hurt and have the solution, the only solution that they can call upon is to meet with another person and say, look, how do I do this? What do I do? Where do I fill things in? What do you need from me? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's a really interesting reflection of the community, and it's the one group that technology, to a great extent, isn't always a very good friend to. Technology gives statistics, technology shows you a clinical solution to a problem, but kinesthetics need more than that. They look at it and they go, how does this affect me? It's a bit like numbers. You know, sometimes, you know, you listen to someone like Alan Jones who does a regular broadcast every morning giving you very detailed numbers of COVID. You know, how many people, what the improvement rate is over the last 24 hours, this sort of stuff. A lot of people would hear that and go, oh, it doesn't mean anything to me. It's just numbers. And statistics are a very difficult thing to translate in words. You know, if you can't see a graph, if you can't see the numbers that demonstrate change, it's very difficult to understand what it really is and what the impact is, particularly if in your own community you don't know anyone who's got it.
I know, yeah, it's frightening, isn't it? You know, so, and you know, I'm always about positive news, and I can say in Toowoomba we've got no cases of coronavirus at the moment. It's there's more testing going on out of Bailey. Believe there's a drive through at Bailey Henderson, and also Carball Medical Centre announced yesterday testing for Indigenous, because I think they're at a higher risk of.
Yeah, no, it's a risk group. There's no doubt about it, you know, and they always are with complex infectious diseases. Aboriginal people definitely need to be given a great deal of support and care at times like this, because it's just a greater risk, you know.
Mm-hmm. And mate, we will have members of the club that are in that category and in that age group, and we've been closed down since the 23rd of March. And I'm wondering if, when we get restrictions lifted, which ScoMo might announce on Friday, they may not come back for a while until they're really settled within themselves, will they? You know, especially if they're Indigenous, they're over that 65 mark. I mean, I'm even scared of 55, I must admit, because I have heard if you're over 50, you're at a risk as well.
You know what you've got to say about Australians, though, Daryl, is that we have this incredible tenacity to just sort of, well, you know, we're just not going to be slowed down by something. You know what I mean? Whether it's war, you know, whether it's disease, we just say. Now, the wonderful thing was, and there was a risk, I'm sure the government was concerned right up front that Australians were going to say, oh, stuff it, like the Americans have. I mean, Daryl, if you look at the Americans, you can see that they just say down south, we don't care. And now the numbers in America are out of control. Here in Australia, we've said, all right, well, they reckon we should shut down and stay inside and not engage. Well, we won't. And of course, the wonderful thing about COVID, particularly in Toowoomba at the moment, is that with no cases, you can't get it if no one's got it. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah.
You know, that's as simple as that. You can't get it if no one's got it. The thing is, though, you know, I've been looking at the flu stats. It's very interesting to compare the flu stats, and I'll send them to you so that you can incorporate them into this session. And it's really interesting to see the comparison between COVID and flu right now, and just to see how, you know, because flu impacts on the people who come to the club and older Australians far more seriously this year than COVID has. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some nasty illustrations of COVID, nothing like flu, mate, nothing like it. Flu is brutal. And we have to just sort of contextualise this, you know, in the sense that, okay, COVID has enormous potential because there's nothing to prevent it. There's no inoculation. But the reality is, of course, right now, flu is a far more dangerous, particularly leading in the winter, risk for our older people. And wonderfully, and I mean, you'd agree with me, you go to Macca's, you go to these sorts of places and they've got these plastic screens up. We've changed. We're protecting people better than we ever have.
Yep,
that is going to be enormously good. I guarantee in the club, you will have brought in some new mechanisms to protect staff and indeed, you know, customers from the risks of disease.
Yeah, I'm sure our general manager will be writing some new procedures for us, and you know, because we do have a pretty comprehensive staff manual, and I'm sure she'll have some new procedures in place there, and especially for guests and members and guests as well. I see that we'll be signing everyone in when they come to the venue, just to ensure that we know who was there and that they're going to be safe. And speaking of the flu, mate, we did have a young lady in Toowoomba die last year from the flu.
It was 30s. I watched that case very carefully. A family, I mean, she's a family woman, you know, like, what's the chances? You know, statistically very low, but it happens.
It happens.
It certainly got us all thinking, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
She was a popular person around town, and very sad. You know, big football community rallied around her, and were just absolutely heartbroken when she died. But it can happen. And I listened to a podcast. I was driving back from Stanthorpe the other day. Amanda Vanstone was interviewing a professor who specialises in. He looks at the numbers of death around the world, and she was talking about, why aren't the media talking about car accidents? Why aren't they talking about the flu? Why aren't they talking about suicides? And yet COVID, what did I say, 97 deaths in Australia so far. But you know what, mate? I mean, just look at flu deaths in America versus COVID. I mean, right now, it's still not a big deal. I mean, these are numbers that are unfathomable to us, 30,000. It's like 10,000 in Russia over the weekend. I mean, they're massive numbers, but so what? Like in a country as big as Russia or a country like the United States, these statistics just don't rate. That's why, in particularly those southern states in the US, They're saying, no, we're not going to do this shutdown business anymore. We're breaking out. We're going to go free. Trump announced this morning that he's going to start his presidential campaign flying to sites around America in June.
Okay.
Now, imagine that. I know. So I don't know where that's going to lead them to. But the simple fact is, I mean, the herd technique is going to be the only way they'll get through this in America, because you either shut it all down or you don't. And if they're not going to, then they're just going to lose a lot more people in nursing homes, a lot more people in that aged group. I mean, I had a very personal experience recently. Sweden made the choice not to do what we did. A very dear friend of mine's father, who I know, died of COVID last weekend.
Okay.
And he died because the Swedes had made this decision to leave everything open. And the consequences are people die. They've had 2,000, 3,000 deaths now, I think, in Sweden. That's a very small population compared to ours. The simple reality is that is a calculated political decision. And, I don't think Australians would cop that in the same way as the Swedes have. Yeah. But it's very sad when you know people who have died that, well, imagine if it was your family, and this is the tough decision the government has had to make. And it's a good decision because you look at it on the grounds of just all of the positivity. And in fact, we and Norway and Finland as someone, New Zealand, we're in the top echelon of countries that have come through this better than anyone. Yeah. We should be very proud of that.
Oh yeah, exceptionally proud, mate. And we'll just see where it all goes. So, mate, I'll look forward to getting those stats for you, and I'll put that into the intro to the video as well. But it's good to catch up with you today and talk. And I'd like to chat to you maybe on a weekly basis. How does that sound?
I'd love to chat to you regularly, mate. And of course, I'll always be there when I can on a Monday night too, because no one should miss Monday night trivia. It is the best.
It was fun, and look, I've been doing it the last 3 or 4 weeks on my own, and I thought, I just got back into Toowoomba. I thought, I'm just going to ring my old mate Ian Stewart, because we had done trivia for Gay Hold and there's Project School Formal at the Irish Hotel. And we're a pretty good team together. So if you want a trivia night when we get back online, give Ian and I a call. But next Monday, mate, we're going to be in another location.
Well, I'd love to do some Toowoomba history with you guys on Monday night one time, because there's a lot of history that I reckon many of our viewers would be surprised about, just how important Toowoomba is historically in Queensland and nationally, that people probably forget about. So I'd love to get into that, because I started a PhD a few years back on the seat of Broome. Didn't finish it, but it was a really interesting insight into Australia, into Toowoomba politics, and some of the stuff I learned out of that was fascinating. So there's a bit of that we could share and throw into the mix, mate.
That'll be great, mate. Excellent. Okay. Well, we'll catch up next week, but thanks for the chat today, and your knowledge is amazing, and I do thank you. This is former USQ lecturer Simon Paton, pretty well known in Toowoomba as well. So thanks for coming on the show today, mate. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks, mate. Great to talk to you. Cheers.
Okay.